Hi, this is Matt Hugg with Nonprofit.Courses, and I'm here to give you a presentation on marketing for the nonprofit organization. I did this at a recent Association of Fundraising Professionals conference, and I wanted to bring it to you. So let's get started. All right, there is a major difference between marketing for a nonprofit and marketing for a business. And it all starts with the fundamental of the organization itself. you know, they're different. In a for-profit organization, right, any business, I give you something, I give you a pencil, I give you a cup of coffee, whatever it is, you give me money, the exchange is done, right? That's how business works. It's, the outcomes are easily measured. It can be short term, right? The whole thing just works. We're very familiar with that, particularly as Americans. In a nonprofit, it works differently. I give you a pencil because my mission is to make sure that everybody who needs a pencil gets a pencil. So I give it to you either free or at a reduced cost. And then I turn to another person, a third party, and I say, can you pay for that pencil? Well, now suddenly I have two markets. I have the clients, the people who are receiving the pencils, and that's different than the people who are paying for the pencils. And the whole thing becomes much more complex at that point. And measuring it becomes harder too. And it's also often a much longer term process. So this whole thing becomes more complicated in the nonprofit sector than it does the for-profit sector. So it's important at the start to know what is nonprofit marketing. Peter Drucker, right, great guru of marketing, says that it's a way to harmonize the needs and wants of the outside with the purpose and objective of the institution. So you're bringing together what people want outside and how the institution is oriented with its mission, and mission makes the difference. A business mission is to make money at whatever it might be good at. But the nonprofit mission is different in that it is to provide services or product or whatever it is to the people who need it, but not necessarily at the price to make a profit or surplus in nonprofit terms, right? And David Williamson, right, says that marketing helps answer these questions. How is our program distinctive? Yeah, that's really important when we're talking about marketing. That's really the basis of what makes us different that we can talk about to the outside world and internally too. What do we want to be known for? You might say that that's your mission, right? But it could be more than your mission. It could be other things. How you carry out your mission is maybe what you want to be known for. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And then why is our work relevant? That's huge, right? Because you're out there talking about what is it that is important about your work and why are you different than somebody else? All excellent questions to answer as we move forward here today. So it's important to remember that nonprofit marketing, any marketing, is not accidental. Yeah, do nonprofits need marketing? You betcha, right? You want to build awareness among the community you serve. That's really important, right? The people need to know about you just straight off the bat. But it's important to remember you can't pay your bills with awareness. You can't say to your local electric utility, hey, let me take some awareness out of my awareness bag here and send it to you, and that'll cover the electric bill. No, marketing has to convert into more than just people knowing about us. Yes, you're a nice organization, or alternatively, people knowing about you and saying, oh, that's a bad place, right? Because marketing can do both of those, and yet that it's good, but that's not the end game. It's to maintain a positive environment for revenue generation, right? Because you have fee for service revenue, you have appropriations, you have contracts, you have charitable gifts. All of those are revenue sources for a nonprofit. And so building awareness among the communities, the specific communities, is essential. All right. Marketing. Is it a challenge to the service ethic? Is it something that's just counter to what mission-based organizations do? Well, let me make some observations for you here. right? Nonprofits appropriately are mission-first organizations. Mission is it, right? The M word. It's the thing that you're there for, whether it's educating kids or saving wildlife or whatever it is, right? Nonprofits are there for that. Does marketing challenge that? No, actually, it enhances that. Okay, but there's a discomfort about promotion. After all, the people who are mission specialists didn't get into their mission to be marketing people. They didn't go take the business courses. You took the courses that in college or whatever that are focused on what you our mission, your mission focus is. If you're an environmental biologist, you took, wildlife ecology. You didn't take the marketing of wildlife ecology. All right, so there's some discomfort because it's just not known. All right, and then there's confusion, therefore. If there's not an education about this, then there's some confusion about what's appropriate and what's ethical and what's good for you and your organization. And some people think it's sleazy. They just don't have a good feeling about marketing because their image of marketing is really skewed. The business world, the commercial world has really tilted that table to what we think marketing is. I love, for those of us of a certain age, remember Joe Isuzu. And if you don't remember Joe Isuzu, look him up on YouTube. That is the archetypical salesman view of what marketing is. And yeah, Isuzu as in Isuzu cars and trucks. So it was an ad campaign in the 70s and maybe the 80s, but very interesting. A guy named Joe Leisure did a great job with that. But what are the benefits of good marketing? Well, it's important to remember that, even though you may not have a comfort with it, there are some serious benefits of getting marketing right and doing it the way that you really will find benefiting your organization. So first of all, the people who receive your services, the mission recipients, as I like to call them, really feel better about your organization and about their whatever you're doing with them if your marketing is strong. Now, why is that, right? Because, your ability to draw blood doesn't make that much difference whether somebody outside the organization said, oh, they're good at that or not. You do it right, okay? But it's amazing how marketing makes people think, and I think appropriately, that they are getting the service that they deserve, the level of service that you're providing. If you're not marketing that service, then they're not sure whether it's good or not, and they may not understand it. So a lot of marketing is education that way. It increases consumer participation. So one person gets a good shot, right? It didn't hurt as much, their baby didn't cry, whatever it was, right? The next person is going to feel like, oh, wow, that's good. I can come in there, I can do the same thing. So you start seeing more people take advantage of your mission, or alternatively, start making more gifts to your nonprofit. And that's really important. And remember, we got to keep in mind that nonprofit marketing going two ways: to the mission recipient, the consumer, and to the donors and the people who are paying for it. Okay, you attract, right? And I was saying two ways, right? You attract resources more easily and better because you have a reputation, right? Our mothers may have told us, right? Our reputation precedes us. Well, really, our mothers were making a marketing statement that your reputation goes ahead of you. People hear about you before they see you. And this is really important, especially when we're talking about funding, because as we know, if people trust you in funding, whether it's government funding or grant applications or charitable giving or whatever it is, right? They want to work with you. If they trust you, if they feel good about you, they want to work with you, which means more funding for you. Right? And you get stronger donor, staff, and volunteer loyalty because they're proud of what they do with you. That's huge, that they're proud and they want to feel like they're part of something that's really important, that's good for them and the community. And they're connected to a bigger purpose through good marketing. And then, right, you have greater efficiency and effectiveness of service. Now, how can that be? How can you get greater efficiency and effectiveness? Because if you do good marketing, you may not have to spend money on other things. Think about the universities that are really great reputation, right? The way they spend their money in after they have that reputation is very different. That frees up funds that they may have been out there pushing to promote a particular program or to convince people of something that was good, but to get the word out into other resources. So that's much more efficient use of their overall dollars. And effectiveness, because when people feel good about what they do it better. So your staff, if they have through good marketing, have feeling good about what they're doing, they're going to do that job better and they become more effective at it. And of course, all this leads to a stronger organization, right? Your organization is going to be much more robust and doing what it should be doing, assuming that your marketing is in place and moving in the right direction. But first, we need to figure out what is a market, right? And it's defined as a group of people who behave the same way, who are relative to your organization's product or services, right? So these are the people who are going to come into your clinic, who are going to go through the woods, who are going to appreciate whatever art you have. That's your market. They're kind of behaving the same way in that they show up, that they have some emotional connection to what you're doing, right? That's your, whatever that is, and however you define that. We'll talk a little bit about that. That's your market. And, other words for market: audience, stakeholders, constituents, clients, right? I'm sure you can come up with their students, patients, right? Donors, right? They're all words for market, for whatever that market is that you have. And so ask yourself, who is your market? And I will tell you, there's only one wrong answer: everybody. Not a valid reply, right? Not even the biggest corporations of the world, Google, Apple, Microsoft, General Motors, none of them say everybody is our market. You might see a commercial on TV for an automobile, right? But remember what you're watching it on, right? What channel or device or whatever you're watching it on, and who does that seem to be speaking to? If you're watching a cartoon show and they're selling high-end cars, you got to ask yourself, who do they think their market is, right? No, they're going to sell high-end cars to a different kind of demographic, maybe a drama or some sort of thriller thing or something like that, right? They're not going to sell those to kids. Therefore, you have to ask yourself, what is our market? What's that look like? And the first step to getting to this stuff, right, is probably the hardest, because it's the place where people are most reluctant. It's the situational analysis. Right? What is the internal thing that you have to figure out to define yourself before you go out and talk to other people, right? This is the classic know thyself moment. Okay, so is your mission clear and concise? And we're not going to talk about getting, the details of what a mission is and all that, right? But is it something that people can grasp easily? 2 or 3 lines, right, that just says it all, as opposed to 2 or 3 paragraphs that are complex and convoluted. Is it clear? Is it concise? Are your values aligned with your mission? This is huge, right? Do people connect with what you do with how you behave? Right? Because the only way people can see your values is how you behave and the material and messages you put out. So are they aligned? And a lot of organizations have a problem with that. I read something recently about, I forget what kind of organization it was, but the only comment, it was a community foundation that offered things for businesses to help them out. And the only comment in the whole thing was that the staff treats the people who are receiving that help like dirt. It was just amazing, right? Obviously, their values didn't align with their mission purpose. And that's huge. I'm not saying, your value, everybody's values has to be nice, but they clearly were not achieving their goals. There was a mismatch there. And that's hard, when things don't align right, people don't want to talk about it. Skills. Do you have the tools to do what your mission calls for you to do? Is there educational material? Is your staff expert in that, right? Nothing says fund me better than expertise. Well-intended doesn't work. Do you have the material needs met that you need to have to move your mission forward. That's huge. Culture, does it support your mission, right? Do the people around you talk about what you do in a way that is moving your mission forward? That's really important. Does your culture support, like if you're a childcare organization, right, but you really push back on people taking time off to deal with their own families, is that really matching, right? You got to ask yourself, are we lined up all the way along here? I know a lot of organizations that promote that they have certain ethics and values and culture, and when you dig down to it, don't do it at all. I've worked in some, and I've certainly seen enough from the outside that way that have a total mismatch. And then infrastructure, like we said before, right? The technology, the facility, support services, strengths and weaknesses, right? What is it that is coming together in your organization so far as material needs and goods that are going to help you move forward? And the fact that you don't have something, that's okay, right? But recognize you don't have something. Don't try to hide it. All this stuff you really got to be upfront with. Otherwise, you just can't be successful in this marketing process. Doesn't mean you have to tell the world about what any problems are. It just means that you need to be out there, working to recognize it internally so that you can address it. Okay, situation analysis. This is really important too, right? The external situation analysis. So what's the funding climate compared to other organizations, right? How about your competition? It's funny. Competitive analysis is something that is just not done really well, if at all, in nonprofit organizations. And it's really important to know who around you does what you do, where the crossovers are. Think of those Venn diagrams we learned in high school geometry or wherever it was that had, the big one circle overlapping the other circle, right? That's what we're talking about. Where do those overlaps occur between you and other organizations in any number of ways? What are the market conditions influencing your own program and your donors and your clients, right? Is there a recession? Is it a boom time? Is there something happening locally that is going to impact it? Or is there some, national trend? Whatever it is, like I say here, cultural, technological, ecological, economic, political, whatever it is, there's going to be bigger issues than just the particular issue that's facing your organization that you're going to have to deal with. Everybody has to live in this environment. How are you dealing with that environment? And then, of course, what are your competitive advantages? What do you do really well? Where are you delivering services that nobody else does? Things like that. And where aren't you doing well? Where do you have a lot of overlap with other organizations? Where do you not make even break even on your programs? And by the way, breaking even is not necessarily bad, right? You're a mission-driven organization. However, balancing a budget is huge. So you need to figure out how to make up for that. And then, do you have the most experienced staff, the widest variety of services, the most highly rated program, right? What is it that you can point to that is really good about you and maybe not so good that on the external side that you need to deal with? So internal situation analysis, external situation analysis, very important bases to get your marketing program started. You can't know how you're going to talk about your organization unless you know who you are and where you sit in the world. All right, you must know, right, what material, goods, and services do your constituents value, right? That's huge, right? What do they like? What don't they like? And ask yourself, if they show up, they like it, right? For some reason. And if they don't, why not? Or why are they showing up? Why do they like you better than another organization or not, right? Right? And these things have to be related to your mission. Remember, mission is it, you know that, right? But connect all these things to your mission, okay? What are the most important services to your clients? Least important, right? But maybe you still offer them because it's important to have whatever variety or to be able to offer that service. Because it's least important doesn't mean you have to cut it off. It just means that your clients don't value that. Maybe you work on that, right? and most visible and least visible to the public. So it could be some of your most important things you do, nobody ever sees, and some of the least important things you do, everybody sees. I mean, you might live in that kind of world. Just be aware of it and be able to address that in your marketing as is appropriate. Okay, you also know what programs support the mission, right? And, are your programs consistent with how people view you? Are you called the whatever institute and people expect they can go to classes there, but you don't offer classes, you're a research organization, or whatever it is, right? But just people need to understand what it is that you do, and that is really impacting how they view you. All this labeling, all that. We'll talk about those kind of things, but it's important to have consistency with your constituents' view of you, right? Is there substance behind whatever promises and messages you deliver now, right? Does if you say, we're the best people for treatment of a particular disease, really, right? I just read something the other day that somebody said, well, we offer the most whatever, right? And honestly, I know they don't. And so there isn't substance behind that. Maybe they're just not keeping up their marketing message, whatever it is, right? It's important that you put meat behind whatever it is that you say you're doing, right? Because marketing, number one, marketing isn't lying, right? It's not trying to tell people something you aren't. You're this, but you're really that. Nothing of that. The strongest marketing comes from the truth, 100%, right? And besides, it's just plain easier to remember the truth, right? It's another thing our mother told us. Okay, what do our intended audiences, think they need? Because what they think they need may not be what they actually need. I love it. I've worked at a handful of higher ed institutions, and every person coming in, oh, look at that pool. That's great pool, right? You know how many people used that pool, right? The people thought they needed. The pool was an admissions tool more than anything else, because the students coming in thought they needed it, and the parents loved it. Nobody was in the pool, except the swim team. I mean, which is fine, but it was totally, different what they thought they needed and what they actually needed. And then what do you think they need, right? You're the expert in whatever you do. So, that same school, right? They thought people, and I think they're right? They needed a very strong academic program, but that's not always what their students and the parents and the community valued about them. They valued the arts gallery, they valued the pool, the theater, things like that. So, you got to be able to balance those together and talk about what one constituency group thinks that they need and want versus what you think they need and want, and make sure that you're providing, what's good. I remember when I worked in the Boy Scouts, right? The kids, I mean, they were in scouting because it was fun, right? But we knew that scouting had values that they were getting, that you say, oh, well, come to scouting because it's all about values. No, come to scouting because you're going to climb rocks, you're going to camp, you're going to go out on canoe trips, all that stuff that kids think, wow, that's fun. A lot of adults think that's fun, but it's not. The kids were getting the program in other ways too. And so the marketing was very interesting with that. All right, yeah, do they match? Not always. Who is your target market, right? Okay, so what's the largest potential market that is most useful to you, right? And define it geographically, demographically, psychographically, behaviorally, right? What is, back to those Venn diagrams, putting those things together and saying, where are we going to talk? Who is going to be defined as the people who our marketing is going to? So maybe donors who live in a certain place with a certain age and income, who have different kind of lifestyle interests and behave because they're already donors, right? Okay, so that's really important, right? Your target market must share in your mission, right? You have to understand, right, constituents' criteria to judge your success. You might say, wow, we're successful by preserving this amount of land, and they're saying, You're successful because some particular species still exists, and it exists because you've preserved that amount of land. Your activities must be consistent with those shared values, your marketing activities and your mission activities, right? Or you're going to lose the people in your market if those activities aren't consistent. And then, right, all this lends energy to your mission. People want to be part of it. You want to be part of it. You're going to share those resources for your mission, right? That's really important that people are going to engage more, right? And you're going to achieve those shared goals, your target market's goals and your goals, because it's about your helping meet that target market's need, which is going to help meet your need. All right, you want to profile your best friends. What describes your best donors, right? What is it? Go back to your database and take a look, right? How do they look? Include their giving and then turn around and then take that same profile. So what you do, you take the people who are in your database, who are your best supporters, and describe them. What commonalities do they have? And then turn around and take out the giving part and go back in your database and look for all those same people who are not donors but look just like them. Can you move those people to be donors? What's different, and understand that and bring them to be donors. That's one way of using profiling for a target market to meet your needs. Yeah, who else looks like those people also in your community too? So they could have all these demographic characteristics and psychographic characteristics, and then go outside and look for those people. You have defined your market, right? So what's in your brand? Well, is it your logo, right? People think logo, they think advertising. Whoops. But no, you know what? It's your services, it's your behavior, it's your speech, it's all these things. You are developing a brand. You personally have a brand. That's really important to know. That you think of it yourself. How do people know you? Well, your logo, right? Do you have some graphic you like, right? How do you advertise yourself? How do people know about you in the community? Do you go to networking events and you're not putting up a billboard, hey, here I am, right? But you're doing other things that advertise your presence. What do you do? What are your services, your behavior, your speech? All these things are your brand. Are you known as being foul-mouthed? Are you known as never swearing at all, right? Are you known as being an athlete or not? Okay, so it sets your organization apart. Your branding is the visual, audio, this emotional feeling of what is different about you. It identifies your services, right? Even if it may not have any graphic visual representation of what you do, your branding identifies what you do to other people on a personal level and an organizational level, right? And it identifies your competitive advantage. Good branding tells people why they should come to you. Whether that's, again, personal, I find the best way to look at this is your personal branding, but your organizational branding will also tell people why, oh, they're the friendliest people. Oh, they have the best service. Oh, they have, whatever it is, right? That's your competitive advantage. Verbally express your brand in a positioning statement, right? It paints a compelling picture, make it tight, focused, a description of your services, okay? And what makes you special? You have to be able to tell people this. This is a bit of that, elevator speech kind of thing, say it in 30 seconds. But, we're the best small liberal arts college with an emphasis on getting kids into medical school. That's kind of, that's kind of a positioning statement. So you got people who, liberal arts college has its own package of what people think of that, all right? And then, your high quality, you want to say you're the best. And getting people into medical school talks about maybe that's your primary objective, is to get people into the health sciences by giving them a good broad education, but preparing them for exactly what they need to go to become a doctor. Whatever it is, you gotta be sharp about this. And your message, what do you want to say, right? It's important that you start gathering stories. Because stories beat stats. It's, you have a story out there that is going to talk about what is it that you do, how does it work, right? How did somebody utilize your services? That's great. People want to hear that. Yeah, you want to have that you've helped 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever it is, but telling that one story makes all the difference, right? Because people learn by stories. They collect, so you want to go out there and collect stories that illustrate your mission. Have a story bank, right? And use emotion in those stories. Tell it with, that person cried or they laughed or, whatever they did, right? Use emotion in the stories because humans are emotional beings. They learn on stories, so you want to work and leverage those human traits. And more importantly, emotion drives memory, right? There's a story about Bill Gates in a meeting early on in the development of Microsoft where he intentionally knocked over a glass at an important part of a meeting that spilled water. Everybody remembered the knocking over the glass and what they talked about based on that little experience. It's just a little emotional cue that got, heightened people there and got them to understand something or remember something. I'm not saying you're going to go knock over glasses every place you go, but just remember, emotion drives memory, right? How are spending decisions made? Very much tied to this, right? People buy emotionally. They are going to say, they love you, right? Remember, think of that car you bought. Oh, I loved that car. I love the color. It fit me. It was really cool. I can see myself in there. Oh, but, right, it gets, 30 miles to a gallon and I never have to do maintenance on this. And it comes with this great package of, the dealer's going to set me up with. So all I do is walk in and they give me another car or whatever. So they buy emotionally, but they justify logically. That's really important to remember as you are looking at your messaging here, your branding, right? Now this is that took us to number 6 to get to what people really think marketing is, right? Because they always think it's the tools. Well, the tools are important, but it's all these other things ahead of the tools, right? So obviously social media, right? Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the places you want to be. By the way, Facebook, like it or not, you got to be there because they're like 80% of, or whatever it is, 60% of the people on social media do Facebook and other things. Everything else comes in about 30% according to a Pew study not so long ago. Print is not dead. Actually, it's interesting that print has been narrowed into what it really does best these days because social media and other ways of communicating online have kind of picked up the load that print used to pick up. So yeah, there could be, and depending on your demographic, who your target market is, and it's not just old people, right, that read newspapers, flyers, newsletters, signage, even paper mail. So just keep print in the back of your mind. It's a really important media that could serve you. Don't just write it off. Broadcast, radio and television, often expensive, not always, especially for nonprofits. There might be some opportunities there for you. Other digital media, blogs, podcasts, paid search, SEO, right? There's some active and passive things you can do to attract people as part of your strategy. And that's really important to keep in mind. And, don't diminish word of mouth, events, public speaking, right? All these things where people actually touch you, actually see you, actually communicate with you in person are huge. And that is as much a media tool as anything else you do, right? Because the objective is to build relationships, not transactions. Your transactions are shallow. Relationships are deep. Transactions are fleeting. Relationships are engaged and connected, right? Transactions are cheap, and this is a problem for somebody. Relationships can be expensive, but they pay off. This is like all major gift stuff too, right? And so you get small gifts in transactions. Think of your annual fund. Think of the money that comes in just for the letter versus big gifts, which you build a relationship over time to get, right? So how do you decide what media? Well, you want to pick what's natural for you. Are you a bunch of introverted geeks about a subject? And that's going to drive something different than extroverts who want to have an event or some sort of activity or go on a speaking circuit, right? but your organization has personality, and you have skills in-house that you can use. You have people who are naturally good at one thing or another already working for you that can contribute to this process. And you have resources, right? You have to make sure that you are going to commit to those resources and make sure that you can do what you can. And you can do a lot with a little if you pick the right media types. So start focusing on, how does your audience want to hear from you, right? Are they an email crowd? Are they a social media crowd? Do you put out flyers in a neighborhood? What's the best way to reach your people? How do they want to hear from you? That's important, right? Pick a small number of media types. You can't do everything, right? Obviously, you're not going to do the billboard. Maybe you will, but you're going to pick just like 3 to start, and just focus on those and get yourself rolling, and then start expanding out on that process, right? And target a really narrow audience, because you want to give yourself some success early on with just a targeted group to address whatever topic is you want to address with them, right? And then, huge, create a system and get good at it, right? Develop a habit, a system of producing and then expanding on that, so that you can track your results, benchmark what you're doing right. You want, whatever the development of that media type is, get a system of getting how you get Facebook posts out, and make sure that that system works. How you develop a story, how you gather the pictures or whatever, right? And do you have a story bank, or are you just doing it on the fly? Whatever it is, right? You systematize it, makes it get done. Track those results. Set just 3 goals, really simple things to start. Maybe how many people came to you, how many people completed a process, whatever. Start looking at what's called KPIs, key performance indicators, for how you can track your success. And the KPI is something that, well, if you see an increase over here, that means all these other things increased or decreased or whatever it is. So look at that as an easy way of tracking your results. And then follow your market. Be where your audience is. Get into the head of the people that you are serving or you're trying to engage with your marketing, right? Understand it from their point of view. Your point of view doesn't matter. Their point of view matters. That's where you need to be. Okay, do you need a plan? You betcha you need a plan, right? And you need an analysis of everything we talked about. Your goal. What are your bigger goals here, right? For this marketing program. Got to know what they are. Otherwise, you just can't figure out whether you've been successful. You need to identify and segment your constituents, right? So come down to those target markets, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, and make sure you understand that through those demographics we talked about. Look at the creation of your brand, right? What is the plan to get your brand up and running? What are the messaging points? What are the images? Right, and what are the talking points? How do you want people to feel? And then how do you train your staff in branding? The person who picks up the phone is a huge part of your branding. Think of the little taglines on your email. That's another part of your branding. It really gets down to that level sometimes. Select your methods, like I said, 2 or 3, right? And develop a calendar. Ooh, a calendar. That's new. So yeah, when are you going to do things, and how are you going to carry those out? That's really important, to have this calendar of, we're going to put out these posts at these times. We're going to put out these postcards maybe, to support the posts, the ask letter to support those things. It all has to come together. And important, name what I call a marketing marshal. One person has to be in charge of this process, right? Maybe they create the plan, right? But they're definitely in charge of implementing the plan and coordinating other people's roles in the plan, and listening to the public, and what their reactions are to what you're doing, right? One person has to be in charge. It doesn't have to be the director of marketing. You don't have to have one of those necessarily, but it could be a board member, right? But adjust the plan as it's needed. But having that one person is huge. This is not, you can have a committee, but one person's got to be the spearhead here. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, because there are too many moving parts. that a single person needs to be able to see that big picture and put them all together and say, oh, we need to adjust here. Oh, we need to, now's the time to implement that part, whatever it is. What's next? You need to make some decisions, right? What's your marketing objective? What's the strategic part here? What do you want your marketing to do for you? Do you want it to bring in more gifts? Do you want it to bring in more clients? Do you want it to connect you better with government officials, right? Connect better with foundations, whatever it is, what's your objective? Then, to whom should you market? You really need to know, who's your target market, segmenting, cut it down to just whatever it is these people are, whoever those people are that need to hear that particular message about your organization. So you need to decide that. You need to know how you position yourself, what's your branding, right? And what are the bigger parts of all that, from the big macro part down to the micro part of what people say, like I said, when they answer the phone. What story should you tell? Develop a story bank. Start collecting things out there that exemplify the best of what you do and how your marketing objective is, carried out in reality. That's really important. I love story banks. I think they're one of the most important things you can do in any organization for any broad number of things. How do you tell those stories, right? Look at your tools for your communication of those stories. Now that you have the stories, now that you know the objective and to whom you're going to talk about and how it fits into the context of your branding, how are you going to tell them? What tools are you going to use, right? How often you should tell them. Remember, you are in the journalism business, or excuse me, the marketing business, not the journalism business. And what I mean by that is journalism tells things once and gone, right? Maybe they got a couple little stories out of some major story, right? But they know that they're in the business to bring you news. News means new, right? As opposed to marketing, which you have license to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat because people don't remember something unless you repeat it. Did you hear about that kid who got shot the other night? Or was it a knife? I forget, right? No, because it was on the, I don't know, I just made that up. It was on the news and it was done and gone and you're on to the next thing and they are too. Whereas you can remember the brand of shoes that you really want because they're at you all the time about that because they've targeted you in that you meet whatever demographic that is and they're giving that message on a continual basis. All right, for this and more things, you can contact me if you want. Go to Nonprofit.Courses. You will find hundreds, literally hundreds of little educational segments just like this. Enjoy it, click early and often. Remember, .courses is just like .org and .com. So it's just Nonprofit.Courses, and for a broad variety of educational content for any aspect of your nonprofit world. Volunteers, board members, staff, right? Okay. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.